lovers of Westeros, Ashley of Noth here. I wanted to give my thoughts on something I caught in a previous season of the show that could have implications for Season 8, and in truth might have explained something from Season 7. In Season 2, Episode 6, we see Myrcella depart King's Landing for Dorne. As Cersei and Tyrion watch from the docks, the following exchange takes place between them. Well, more or less at Tyrion from Cersei. One day I pray you love someone. I pray you love her so much. When you close your eyes, you see her face. I want that for you. I want you to know what it's like to love someone, to truly love someone, before I take her from you. Tyrion gives Cersei a look and silently walks away. The camera pans to everyone gathered at the docks to see Myrcella off, and that's that. Why is this brief dialogue important 5 to 6 seasons later? Because now Tyrion loves someone, and he doesn't love just anyone, he loves the Mother of Dragons. Naturally, my first thought was that this could have foreshadowed Cersei killing Daenerys and literally taking her from Tyrion by taking her life. Forcing Tyrion to live without Dany, the way Cersei had to live without Myrcella, actually has to live without Myrcella since Tyrion shipping her off to Dorne indirectly led to her death. Having Tyrion haunted by that pain every day would certainly be justice for Cersei. But Cersei killing Daenerys just isn't practical at this point. So I thought about it and a second thought occurred to me. There's another way for Cersei to take Daenerys from Tyrion. Get Tyrion to betray Dany and reveal that betrayal at the most opportune time. That would not only take Dany from Tyrion in that their professional relationship would be over, it would also ensure that there is no chance of Dany returning Tyrion's affections. Tyrion having to live out his days knowing the woman he loves hates him and thinks of him as a traitor would satisfy Cersei, I believe. Hell, it might even go so far as resulting in Tyrion's death, considering how Dany told Varys she'd punish his betrayal. That would be the ultimate victory for Cersei, you'd think. She'd have taken the woman Tyrion loves from him and got him killed in one fell swoop. Though she seemed pretty intent on wanting Tyrion to feel the same pain she felt, so it's a bit of a toss-up as to which outcome she'd find most satisfactory. Now, before detailing the implications of Cersei's threat on Season 7 and Season 8, let's talk about Tyrion's feelings for Daenerys, because I do believe he's in love with her. If that look on his face when he realized that Jon and Dany were sleeping together wasn't enough, there were a few other hints along the way. In Season 7, Episode 6, Tyrion and Dany discuss her naming an heir since they believe she can't have children. But before they even get to that, Dany gives Tyrion a backhanded compliment about liking him because he's not a hero, saying that heroes do stupid things and they die. She names different heroic men she knows, and Tyrion picks up on the fact that each man Dany named fell in love with her, including Jon Snow. Dany denies that Jon loves her, and when Tyrion disputes Dany's denial, she rebuffs Jon as a suitor, saying he was too little for her. As soon as she said that, you can see in Tyrion's face that she definitely hurt his feelings. Rewind to Season 6, Episode 10, when Dany names Tyrion her hand. That starts out with the two discussing Dany dumping Daario. Remember, Tyrion convinced her to do this under the guise that Daario's presence in Westeros would be a liability. In any case, Tyrion attempts to console her, telling her decisions like these are what good queens do. Then he tells her that Daario wasn't the first man to love her, nor will he be the last. At the time, I took that to foreshadow Dany's future romance with Jon Snow, and it definitely did. But further observation would reveal Tyrion was talking about himself. As he's telling Dany this, Tyrion kind of stares a little bit longingly at her, and when Dany changes the subject, the look on his face says it all. He was crushed that she couldn't see he was telling her he loved her. Going back to Dany ending things with Daario, that was sound advice. Daenerys may need to forge an alliance by marrying, something I actually think Varys and Tyrion should have set up with Randall Tarley and arranged for Dany to marry Dickon, but I digress. Dany may need to forge an alliance with marriage, so having her boisterous mistress hanging around as one of her closest advisors wasn't going to work. In the books, Barristan Selmy has the same idea, but takes it a step further by thinking it would be better for Dany if Daario died. He even thinks of their love as poison. So again, Tyrion made a sensible call in getting her to do this. But given his own feelings for Dany, is it not possible that Tyrion had a secondary motive in giving that advice? Like eliminating a rival suitor? I kind of suspected that was the case when Tyrion came up with the plan for the Fellowship to go beyond the wall and capture that white. On the one hand, as absurd as it was, the idea of showing people the truth in something they don't believe is understandable, but at what cost? This mission was tremendously dangerous and could have killed everyone on it, which might have been what Tyrion wanted, because two of the men in the Fellowship were men Tyrion identified as loving Daenerys. And it gets even more interesting when you consider that when the Fellowship was set to die, Tyrion advised Dany to do nothing and just let them die. Once again, you could say Tyrion was looking out for Dany's best interests, but if Jon and Jorah died, and Daario is back in Meereen, Tyrion would be the only man who loves Dany left in her life. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. And before you go calling me crazy for questioning Tyrion's objectivity, listen to this. Peter Dinklage gave an interview to Elite Daily in which he said, "We'll deal with how much Daenerys can trust him to stay loyal to her against the Lannisters. But he's smitten with his employer. How good can he be at his job while having those feelings?" So we have it straight from the horse's mouth. Tyrion is compromised. So him having concealed agendas isn't as crazy as it sounds. Now that Tyrion's love for Dany has been established, let's talk about how Cersei's threat to Tyrion about taking the woman he loves from him could impact the story. Recall from earlier on in this video, I said that taking the woman need not mean killing the woman, and that perhaps Cersei devised a trap for Tyrion to take Dany from him by driving a permanent wedge between them. My suspicion is that Cersei used her pregnancy to manipulate Tyrion into betraying Daenerys, because she knows that Tyrion loved her children. This is silently consistent with something from the books. When Daenerys visited the House of the Undying, she was told that she'd experienced 3 betrayals. 1 for blood, 1 for gold, and 1 for love. So you can see how Tyrion betraying Dany for the love he has for Cersei's children connects to that. But what was the nature of the betrayal? Well, what I surmise is that an off-screen deal was struck between Cersei and Tyrion. And we know the setup for that exists because after Jon foolishly told Cersei he'd already pledged himself to Daenerys' cause, Cersei withdraws the crown's truce and assistance in the impending war with the dead. So Tyrion goes to meet with Cersei privately to change her mind. And whatever he said worked because Cersei returns to the dragon pits and repledges the crown's assistance. Now, we don't get to see the entirety of their closed-door meeting, but based off what we did see, combined with other clues from this season, a reasonable inference can be made as to the terms of the deal. Let's start with the meeting. Cersei not only reveals her pregnancy, but she lays a pretty heavy guilt trip on Tyrion about how his actions led to the death of her children. Children she knows Tyrion loved, and that's her laying the breadcrumbs into the trap. Tyrion walks into it by admitting his guilt about the children, which, again, is what makes him susceptible to the manipulation in the first place. After that, Cersei reveals she's pregnant, and that's all we get for their meeting. Now, I point you back to the fireside discussion between Dany and Tyrion. He encourages her to name an heir because she can't have children, and Dany angrily accuses Tyrion of focusing on her death a bit too much, even going so far as to accuse him of discussing her death with Jaime. Here's some of the dialogue. The world you want to build doesn't get built all at once, probably not in a single lifetime. How do we ensure your vision endures? After you break the wheel, how do we make sure it stays broken? You want to know who sits on the Iron Throne after I'm dead. Is that it? You say you can't have children, but there are other ways of choosing a successor. So we can see that prior to the meeting with Cersei, Tyrion is thinking about how to handle the succession. Then he has this meeting with Cersei to bring her back into the truce, a meeting in which she blames him for the deaths of her children, and Tyrion acknowledges his guilt over that. She informs him she's got another on the way, and bim bam boom, Cersei's suddenly agreeing to help again. Might Tyrion have got Cersei to agree to help by naming Cersei's baby as Dany's heir, as a way to atone for the deaths of Tommen and Myrcella? Is he planning to ensure Dany's vision endures with Cersei's baby under his tutelage? That's what I suspect happened, and I think Tyrion was motivated to strike such a deal, not only because the Lannister army is crucial in the war with the dead, but because, from his perspective, Dany continues to put herself in perilous situations without naming an heir. I think this, if it indeed happened, makes sense for Cersei because it sets her child up as the heir to the Iron Throne and provides her the opportunity to take the woman Tyrion loves away from him. If this is true, at minimum, Dany expels Tyrion from her service. At maximum, well, Dracarys. It would be interesting if Cersei informed Dany of this agreement by sending a letter to Jorah, whose own betrayal of Dany was exposed in a letter given to Ser Barristan. Maybe the letter is a pardon for Tyrion serving Daenerys, citing the pact between them as the impetus for the pardon. Maybe Jorah enlists Varys to authenticate the seal as Cersei's. Maybe the show even recreates the Dany confronting Jorah scene, but this time it's Tyrion. Jorah approaches and gives Tyrion the letter. Tyrion asks Jorah what it is. Jorah says, a royal pardon signed by your sister, and something to the effect of, you betrayed our queen. Tyrion could ask, where did you get this? Just as Jorah asked Barristan. And Jorah could answer, it doesn't matter. Then Tyrion would ask, have you told her? And Jorah would say, I wanted to tell you first, man to man, rather than go behind your back. That last bit would make sense to me because Tyrion and Jorah have been through hell and back together, so Jorah would extend that courtesy. And not for nothing, he could pay it forward because he appreciated Barristan coming to him first back in the day. Then the scene would carry on just as it did for Jorah previously, and when Tyrion is brought before Daenerys, she forces him to admit why Cersei pardoned him. Tyrion could try and spin it like Jorah did, saying Cersei sent the pardon to divide them in hopes that if they fought amongst themselves, they couldn't fight her. Then, when his excuses get him nowhere, he'll drop the bomb that he's always loved Dany. At this point, the scene would diverge from Jorah's and Meereen because remember, Dany told Jorah if it was any other man, she would have him executed. Tyrion is another man. So, if this theory is true, even if none of my fanfiction and recreation that I just went through, even if none of that occurred, Dany could well end up executing Tyrion. My apologies for all of that detail. I was trying to illustrate my perspective as fully as I could because I think there's potential in this idea. Something else that I really believe in when it comes to this is this notion that the show tends to recreate things they've already shown us. And I think the circumstances being what they are at present in the story lend themselves to the show recreating Dany having a scene where she confronts someone who's betrayed her, except this time, as opposed to Jorah, it's Tyrion. Now, I fully expect that Cersei remembers making the threat to Tyrion because it was made on the day her daughter was shipped off to Dorne. She probably remembers everything about that day. I think the fact that Dany mentioned Tyrion talking about her death with Jaime might have even foreshadowed the agreement between Cersei and Tyrion. Dany had the right idea, but the wrong sibling. Now, the Achilles heel of this theory is why Tyrion would enter into an agreement with Cersei. In that fireside conversation with Dany, he outright says no one trusts Cersei less than him. He even encourages Dany to think like her enemies so she can anticipate their actions and respond effectively. Therefore, you'd think Tyrion would anticipate Cersei using any pact they make against him. My best guess is going back to what the Undying Ones foretold. Tyrion made the deal and subsequent betrayal for love, the love of his unborn niece or nephew. Or maybe it could be that Tyrion was doing anything it took to get Cersei's help in the War for the Dawn, since he probably quite literally believes that Dany and Jon need every capable fighting person that they can get. Unfortunately, I have nothing more to offer beyond my speculations because the fact of the matter is, we don't know what happened due to the scene cutting out. What we do know is that Cersei was adamantly against providing the Crown's assistance prior to the meeting. And then, when next we see her after the meeting, she's changed her mind. Tyrion had to have said or done something to inspire that change. A deal that brings Cersei into the war, that gets Dany an heir, that ties back to Cersei's threat, that ties into the books, seems like a reasonable suggestion to me. Do you guys agree? Could Cersei use a potential pact with Tyrion to steal away the woman he loves? Could Tyrion have been compelled to make such a pact out of love and guilt about Cersei's children? Or am I just full of malarkey? A lot of people would probably go with that option now that I think about it. In any case, let me know down in the comments. As always, like and subscribe for more content. Thank you for watching. I'm Ashley of Noth.